So hello everyone, and thank you for joining the fourth episode of the Smart Water Mentorship Program. This is an initiative led by the Swan Forum and the Rising Smart Water Professionals, also known as RiSWP. To start, I'll introduce myself. My name is Sapir Yarden. I'm the Operations and Ecosystem Lead at the Swan Forum. Swan is the leading global organization for the smart water and wastewater sectors. We bring together utility leaders, solution providers, industry experts to talk about accelerating the smart water and wastewater sectors worldwide. This is a selection of our global membership, but we also have regional activities, and one of our new offerings is also working with young professionals, the RiSWP group. So to share a little bit more about what we do, we have a global conference that is happening this year, May 24th to 28th. This will be the 11th annual conference, taking place over a week, sort of as a virtual Smart Water Week. We're very excited for this conference, which brings together a lot of the industry leaders and experts. This year, we're also offering a discounted rate for students. So if you're a young professional who's currently in academia, tickets are currently £50, and we highly encourage attendance. So it'll be great networking and engagement all around. With that, I'll also introduce the RiSWP leadership team. This is a global selection of leaders who are helping to accelerate smart water among young professionals around the world. And I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, our fourth webinar today. And I guess I'll just continue introducing the RiSWP team, or should I? Oh yeah, the ambassadors.
There you go.
Great.
Sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, so we're super excited because not only this week do we have a webinar hosted by fellow LT member Rudy, we also launched our first cohort ever of Rising Smart Water Ambassadors. So we're super, super excited about this. You may have seen it on LinkedIn. I was kind of buzzing about it earlier this week. Some of the ambassadors are here today with us. I know Amrita, Elia, Amin, and some others are joining us, Kim as well. So nice to see you all here. And Mithosi Siki as well. So great to have you all. We have 16 ambassadors from across the globe, from 12 different countries, 8 men and 8 women, so gender parity. And so we just wanted to launch them today during this webinar as well, and to really give them a warm welcome to the RiSWP community. And they will be organizing activities and events and smart water sessions in their countries and regions as well. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to meet them, just reach out to them on LinkedIn. We've posted all about them on our group, so have a look there. And now I'll hand it over to Rudy.
Thanks so much, Lisa and Sapir, for introducing the session, and welcome everybody to our fourth episode of the Smart Water Mentorship Program. This program is all about getting the life and career advice from the leading smart water professionals in the world. And we've taken inspiration from Tim Ferriss's book, you may have heard of it, Tribe of Mentors, where we are looking to find advice for rising smart water professionals using a set of 7 guiding questions. And these sessions are recorded and put on Swan's YouTube page, making a library of resources for the future. You may find some advice that resonates with you today, and maybe in future when you re-listen, something else may resonate then. So we encourage you to have a look at our portfolio of episodes thus far. Just before we continue to our special guest for today, a bit of housekeeping. We'd love for you to introduce yourself in the chat box and let us know where you're from. The questions can also go there in the chat box, and we'd love also to encourage you to unmute and put on your microphone when we ask you to ask your question. But if you don't want to do that, that's all right. Just let us know with your message that you'd rather us ask that question. So please feel free to put the questions in the chat box. We'll be asking them in between my interview questions all along the session. So today we have a very special guest. I'd like to introduce you to Sielen Namdar. Sielen is a highly skilled industry solutions executive with 23 years of experience in leading high-profile strategy for public and private infrastructure programs. She has expertise in digital transformation of critical infrastructure, Internet of Things technologies, and secure governance of IT and operations technology. In her role as Cisco's Industry Solutions Executive for Cities and Communities, Sielen has built business from the ground up, delivering resilient and modernized systems for water utilities. She also partners with government agencies to drive secure fiber optic network implementation for multi-use connectivity to address government resiliency, digital inclusion, and economic development. Prior to joining Cisco, Sielen spent 20 years at Jacobs. She also co-founded Jacobs' Smart Cities Initiative in 2015, developing state-of-the-art Internet of Things solutions. Sielen serves on many fora and committees. She has an impressive CV. Let me just tell you a few more things. Sielen serves as the chair of the partnership group for the SWAN Forum, and she sits on the Utilities Advisory Committee of CTIA Smart Cities Working Group. She also served as a membership chair for WTS, a nonprofit organization advancing women leadership in transportation, where she received the Member of the Year award. Sielen is a graduate and now also a coach of the Seattle Leadership Tomorrow program, a civic leadership organization focused on solutions that cross sectors and silos to foster healthy communities. Sielen also leads Cisco's Global Water Impact Strategy with the sustainability and CSR teams, and she's the co-lead overseeing the adoption of diversity and inclusion. With a CV like that, wow, I'm so inspired and so appreciative of your time. Sielen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rudy. It's my pleasure. Looking forward to this discussion.
Me too. We're going to start with a little bit of an icebreaker to just learn a little bit more about you personally. So we have a few rapid fire questions. So these are 7 very brief questions. And it'd be great if you could just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. So the first one is, if you could please complete the sentence, smart water is.
Smart water is the use of digital and real-time data to derive intelligence and visibility into water, wastewater assets, in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And what do people often get wrong about you?
They may think that I'm only engaged in water, but in fact, I have more than 2 decades of experience in all kinds of infrastructure. So, including transportation and energy. And now, in addition to water, as of a month ago, I'm also leading Cisco's global ports, rail, and airports businesses.
Wow, that's incredible. One of your favorite books?
I would say Pivot by Jenny Blake. It's a great book that talks about how it's important to be resilient in the face of change, and also being able to double down on your strengths and interests to shift in a new direction. So really using what you have learned and all your experience as a springboard for your next adventure.
That sounds great. So I'll add that one to my list. Is there a must-have part of your typical workday?
Yes, exercise and fresh air, and also spending time with family, for sure.
Those are good things to include. What is on your nightstand?
A stack of books that are waiting to be read. One of my favorite authors is Adam Grant, and there's one that comes to mind, Originals, that it's just been sitting there that I need to get to.
Great. I also enjoy Adam Grant. What is a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that brings you true joy?
Yes, so we've started this tradition with my family when the pandemic started. I had never read the Harry Potter books, and my kids insisted that I do so. So every time I finish one book, we sit and we watch the movie. We have all the DVDs. So I just finished the 5th book, and I'm looking forward to sitting with the family and watching it this weekend.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds so great. do you have a latest curiosity?
Yes, we have been talking about inclusive technology and, kind of in the light of everything that has happened in the past year. And what does that mean? And, specifically, what does it mean to communities and, for example, to water infrastructure? So that is something that I'm thinking about quite a bit.
Fantastic. And I'm sure your knowledge of all the other sectors really contributes to that. Thank you, Sielen. I'm now going to move on to the longer, proper interview questions. And in between each of my questions, I'm going to just check in with Lisa and see if there are any audience questions as well. So my first question, and feel free to elaborate, we are just providing guidance and we'd love to hear your stories and your advice for young professionals and their careers. The first question is, are there any significant people or events that helped you to get where you are now in your career as a smart water professional?
Yes, absolutely. I think one that comes to mind is when I was at Jacobs, Legacy CH2M, there was a point where a small group of us, including a couple of high-level leaders of the company, decided to start the Smart Cities Initiative. And through that, I really became, for the first time, I was engaged with technology as it related to infrastructure. And so the folks that I worked with on that initiative and kind of bringing it to life and making it happen, they were very much influential in kind of my next step and my next pivot. And also at that time, my sister worked at Microsoft. And so she connected me to a group at Microsoft that focused on smart cities called City Next. And so that was kind of my very first interaction with a technology company, kind of talking about smart cities. And then, of course, I met folks from Cisco working on similar types of projects. So I would say there were several people in that realm that had just started that journey in smart cities, and that really impacted me in a very profound way, which in fact, after all those interactions and building our initiative, I felt that I really wanted to be in that space full time. So hence the pivot.
Fantastic. Do we have any audience questions yet, Lisa? Nothing
yet, but
yet. Okay, I'll continue. Please do post your questions in the chat if you have any questions for Sielen. Next question is, what is one of the best or most, doesn't necessarily need to be a monetary investment, it could be anything, time, energy, etc.
Yes, so a few years ago, I decided to join a program called Seattle Leadership Tomorrow, which is a civic leadership organization focused on exploring various strategies for creating positive change in communities across sectors, to foster healthy and thriving regions and communities. And what I learned through that program was incredibly amazing because kind of being in the industry, I had mostly focused on corporate leadership, leadership with customers, those kinds of things. And this provided an opportunity to really have a lens on the community and kind of think about what are some challenges that our communities face and what can we do from a leadership perspective to have an impact. So going back to our respective organizations, how can we create a change? And that's really what inspired me to get engaged with our inclusion strategy at Cisco, diversity and inclusion, and really drive it internally within Cisco as well. So I would say that was an amazing investment. And I understand that kind of a program is available in most of the large cities, something similar to that.
Very interesting. I'll look into that. It would be great to do. Our next question is, what is the most important leadership lesson you've learned, and how has it been proven invaluable?
Yeah, so, it's really about the people. When we think about what leadership is, it's about building trusted relationships and also building on people's strength. Also, it's good to have a well thought out plan that you've developed, while also having flexibility to adjust the plan when things get stagnant or if they don't work as intended. So that feedback loop becomes very important to make sure that you're continuing to lead in the right direction. Also, getting out of your comfort zone. It's just all about that. If we get comfortable in what we're doing, granted, we may be really good at it, we're not pushing ourselves and we're not learning and we're not getting exposed to new ideas and new people and new ways of thinking. So I really believe in being a lifelong learner and really exposing yourself to new things, new ideas, new, innovative thinking. So those are some of the key things that I've learned over the years.
So we actually have some questions coming in the chat now in response to, I think, some of your answers. So maybe I'll take those away. So one is coming in from Sapir, and she's wondering, what was it like starting to discuss smart cities before it became such a popular term?
That's a great question. I would say that only a small subgroup of folks would really understand what that was all about. And those are people who were directly engaged in a particular projects or program, but it was not widespread at all. In fact, when we started this whole initiative back then in 2015 at Jacobs, or Legacy CH2M then, it was a very new thing. And so we had to do a lot of education and explain to people what it is, what is smart cities, and why does it matter, and why should people invest their time and resources in it. And so we did a lot of education, both internally and externally. So it was certainly a very, very subgroup of people who knew anything about it or who were interested to spend time on it. So now we, about 6 years later, we are in a very different place. And I feel that this last year, with the pandemic and with the push for everyone to at least go digital for work, to provide that opportunity of remote workforce, that has really put digital in the forefront of why it's important and how it can help.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll take another question before we move on to the next question from Rudy. In the chat, Alexandra Webb has a question. Alexandra, would you like to unmute and ask Sielen your question directly? I guess I'll ask it.
Yeah,
oh, okay,
yeah.
you're there.
No,
Perfect.
sorry about that. I'm on my phone, so in the chat, I can't unmute at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So my question is, as someone who's sort of had quite a variety of different career trajectories, how did you manage sort of changing what your base career sector was without losing some of that progress that you had worked hard to gain in a previous sector when you were moving, say, out of transportation and more into water or like those kinds of things. Because yeah, it can feel like you're starting in a whole new sector and then trying to prove that you have the skills to keep moving forward versus starting again down at the entry level.
That's a great question. Thank you, Alexandra. So there are a lot of elements that are similar. So when you think about, for example, when I moved from transportation to water, so my degree's in civil engineering. So I, certainly had some basic courses in all different kinds of civil engineering. And so it wasn't completely foreign to me, when I made that change. And it was really about teamwork, and it was about, again, learning, getting up to speed, and also, again, leaning in on the strengths and the experience that was already achieved. Because, again, so when you have a certain work approach, that is very transferable from one, vertical to the next. If you're approaching things a certain way, and again, so that's kind of, from one vertical to the next, but then kind of going from a traditional civil engineering company to technology, that was certainly a bigger leap. And let me be honest, it was quite scary for me, to make that change, after 20 years of being in a traditional consulting environment, to go to high tech. But it was also thrilling and exciting, and I just felt alive, and, just the prospect of learning new things. And really, the reason why I was brought on to Cisco was to bring everything that I had learned and experienced and my expertise in the industry, in the civil engineering industry. That's why I was hired. So I brought all those relationships, all those specific, project and industry experience that I had to my role. So it's not like you would throw them away. You basically build on top of what you've already achieved. And then from there, you would pivot in a new direction. So that's exactly why I love that book, Pivot, because that's exactly what it talks about, that you don't necessarily throw things away. You actually build on all those things that you've achieved and all those strength areas. So in fact, I read that book after I made the change to Cisco. And when I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's what I did. So it's kind of cool. There's actually a book about it. So certainly, makes the journey more exciting when you do make those kinds of changes.
Great, thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks so much, Alexandra, for that great question. I think that's something that a lot of us have on our mind, especially working in water and smart water. We're bringing in so much diverse expertise, and I think how you answered it, Sielen, is like perfect. So thank you. Rudy, do you want to go back on to the next questions, or should we take one more from the chat?
I think let's have one more from the chat. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. So the next question is from Linesha. Linesha, would you like to unmute and turn on your camera and ask your question to Sielen? Linesha is one of our new ambassadors also, by the way, coming from South Africa.
Thank you. I won't unmute because I think we have really bad Wi-Fi connection today.
Okay.
So,
no worries.
So my question was, what is it like on a typical day in your career, Sielen? Because a lot of us are still in the engineering space, and we know what our day-to-day is like, but things that you possibly do, maybe like strategy sessions, whatever it may be, to just give us some idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Linesha. Just to make sure I understood the question correctly, you're wondering about kind of what day-to-day looks like. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, so day-to-day, as I'm sure a lot of you are kind of in that boat, is back-to-back virtual meetings. And at the heart of it is tremendous collaboration. So we collaborate with partners, we collaborate with customers, We collaborate internally, constantly messaging kind of what we're working on, what's the benefit of it, what's the value proposition, how can we create win-win scenarios for everyone. And so again, a lot of it is about creating value. And so one of the key things that my organization within Cisco focuses on, which is the Industry Solutions organization, is focusing on creating solutions that are relevant to a particular vertical, that are very much aligned and tailored to what the customers are looking for. And, you know, again, where we are playing is bringing IT and operations or OT, so operations technology, we call that OT. So bringing IT and OT together, because that's where we are. When we're talking about digital transformation, that's at the heart of it. So we're having a lot of conversations about what those solutions are, what they look like, how do they meet the needs of the customer. And so a lot of time is spent talking about those solutions, presenting on those solutions, developing partnerships with particular partners that can add to our solution. Because the reality is that not one solution or not one technology solves it all. So we have a stack. That's why we have a stack of technology. And, and that's where partners come into play. They complete our solution. So a lot of times is spent on that, developing those partnerships and solutions together. And of course, I spend a good amount of time on SWAN, so as the partnership chair for the Americas.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Sielen.
much.
We're going to do one more question from our set of guiding questions, and then we'll get back to the audience questions. What advice would you give a smart, driven, inspired, rising professional or graduate about to enter the smart water world? Is there any bad advice that they should ignore?
Yes, that's a really good one. So I would say make as many connections as you possibly can. Again, it's all about networking, relationships, building trust, and also creating a brand for yourself. So as you go further in your career, you would be focusing on what your values are, and how does that translate into a brand for you, your personal brand, right? And how would you convey that to people that you want to work with, that you want to collaborate with, that you're going to, that they'll become your customers potentially. So that would be something really good to work on. And also that, when it comes to smart water, that's a very exciting field and a growing one. And so there are many different areas that you can be focusing on. So learning as much as possible about all of those different areas would be a good thing to do. So thinking about the entire technology stack and what that means. Bad advice. I would say one of the worst, advice, or I don't know if I would call it advice, but comment is like, it can't be done. I hear that on a daily basis. It can't be done. No, we're not going to go there. We're not going to do that. Nobody has done it before. Well, that's exactly why we're talking about it, because nobody has done it before. So I would say don't take no for an answer. Make your pitch better. Go back, take your comments, make it better, and go find somebody else who may say, oh, I like that. I get it. I see where you're going. And it's just amazing that if you don't give up, you will hear that yes. And so that's what makes it all worthwhile. So filter all the no's. I mean, definitely take their comments in and understand why they're saying no, but don't give up. So I would say that's one of the most important things that I've learned. Also, maybe when it comes to smart water, people may say, oh, focus on one area. you know, or just, you know, go learn this technology. I would say, again, learn as much as you can. Learn about the entire stack. Learn about the partners. Learn about the solutions. Learn about customers who you know, who can benefit from those solutions. And don't maybe put yourself in just one box right off the bat, because again, as young professionals, you want to get as much experience as possible and be exposed to a variety of areas. You know, maybe you're interested in how financing works for smart water, right? I mean, that's a completely different angle. Go learn about it. Go, you know, these days you can, by just a few keywords, you can get to a lot of information and data. And then of course, talking to people. So those are some of the things that come to mind.
Thank you, Sielen. We're going to take a few more audience questions now.
Sure. Yeah, I think Alexandra had a few more questions. Alexandra, do you want to ask one of them again?
Actually, I think that the last answer really addressed the questions that I had about where, like, which rising technologies or trends we should be sort of exploring as young professionals, and then also what opportunities do you see in the water sector for non-engineers or non-technical backgrounds, people who are still really interested in water as an industry?
So I would, thank you for that. I would add one more thought for folks who are not technical, who want to be really involved in this space. I would say it's an exciting time to be, you know, to be in that space. And we need just as many non-technical people as we do in technical. Because remember, an idea is only as good as if others believe it's a good idea. So it's really important to be able to message the ideas, message the solutions, be able to socialize those with a variety of people, be it customers, be it investors, be it partners. I mean, we're constantly talking about what the solutions are, how they help, what's the value proposition. So these are really soft skills. These are skills that are definitely not technical skills. So, you know, collaborating with technical people to understand kind of at the high level what the messaging is, and then being able to convey that to a variety of audience, that's an art. And we need more people in that than ever. So I would say it's an exciting time to be in that space and to have that kind of a background. So absolutely critical.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Lisa, are there any other audience questions you'd like to ask?
Sorry, I was on mute. The phrase of 2021. We have one question coming in from Inderjeet. Would you like to turn on your camera and ask your question, or one of your questions that you have? Not sure. Or maybe I'll just ask it then. The first question is, do you think that there is a need of a different type of approach or dimension for mentorship, particularly to youth living in big or small cities?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I'm not sure if I quite got the gist of it.
Yeah, Inderjeet, are you there? Would you like to elaborate? If you can unmute. Okay, I'm not sure that they're still there. So that was it in terms of...
I see Amin is also raising his hand. Maybe he has a question.
Oh, Amin, go ahead. Sorry, I can't see the raised hands.
Yes, I raised my hand. Thank you very much, Sielen, for sharing your valuable experience with us. I'm very happy that I'm here to learn more about your experience. I have two questions. The first one, just for curiosity, where are you from originally? Because your surname seems like Iranian surname. I would like to know where.
Yes, and I believe we are from the same country originally. So yes, I'm Persian, from Iran originally. And yeah, I came to the US a long time ago, but I came for college. So yeah, I was 19 when I came to the US. So yeah.
Great, that's great. That I see a successful leader very far from my country now in the US and talking for us. And my second question is about that. What do you think about the future of the smart water network? In fact, there is a discussion that many people say that maybe this brings disadvantages as regarding the decreasing some jobs related to the human. For example, when we look at the history of the this concept, smart approaches, sometime many years ago, maybe many data were driven manually by humans, but now it is done by technology, by computers. What do you think about the future of the smart water network?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you know, the interesting thing is that people may think that some jobs may be lost. And that is true. Some jobs will shift, right? So because as we go to automate, the types of jobs that you that some folks do, which is very manual, you know, kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again, that can be done by machines. The reality is, though, that jobs are not going to go away. They're going to shift. They're going to shift form because, again, the machines are only as good as the algorithms that you put in them. You know, they're only as good as kind of the intent that you provide for them, the strategy that you develop. So there is definitely that human aspect that is driving all of that. And so it's not that we're going to, yeah. So again, there's going to be probably some kind of a shift in the types of jobs that there are today compared to the jobs that are going to be, I don't know, 50 years from now or 100 years from now. But it's almost the same thing as when we think about horse and carriage, right? I mean, there are a lot of folks who were engaged in building, you know, whatever gear that needed to go with the horse, right? So, and as we move to building cars, then those kinds of jobs became more available, right? For folks to work in factories and to work on, you know, assembly lines and pieces that created the cars. So again, there's probably going to be some form of shift, but, you know, new opportunities will arise. I guess that's my point. You know, some will maybe kind of fade away, but new opportunities will rise. So I'm not, so absolutely, you know, that's something that needs to be talked about. And also something that the industry needs to be preparing for. So one of the, for example, exciting things that we're doing right now at Cisco is that Cisco has an education arm called Networking Academy. So Networking Academy is in thousands of locations globally. They're offered, you know, these courses are offered in high schools, in community colleges, and universities. And it's really for folks to get a certificate and be able to do networking. Now, we are working with our teams and we're working with partners to create courses that focus on where IT and operations technology come together. So really understanding what operators will need in the future when it comes to networking, cybersecurity, all that. And also how can IT people support operations people in the future, because it's all melding together now. And so we are going to be providing those courses, and they're going to be Cisco certified, and they're going to help with developing the workforce of the future, you know, when it comes to operators, when it comes to technicians and all of that. So those kinds of jobs, we are going to be preparing them for those kinds of jobs, which is, so that's that's kind of one example of how do you shift from, you know, a manual, non-automated role into, again, it's still a technician role, but how do you make that more kind of next century, if you will?
So there is a balance.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for those questions, Amin. I think we'll let Rudy ask the next question.
Thanks, Lisa. Sielen, do you have a mentor, or have you ever had a mentor? And if so, what role did they play in your career?
That's a really good question. And I would say that I've never really had a formal mentor. There has been a lot of folks, you know, in my career that I have learned a lot from. So absolutely, there's been many. I cannot even count how many. Again, you know, one of my key values is learning. And I always make a point of learning something new from everyone that I collaborate with and encounter, be it somebody older or younger. So, so again, I haven't really had formal mentors, but have had many conversations with many wonderful folks and leaders over the years on specific topics that I was interested in. So always went to seek the information and knowledge that I was looking for with a variety of folks.
Thanks, Sielen. And very inspiring to hear about your Cisco Networking Academy. I see Sophia has added it in the chat for everybody to have a look at as well.
Absolutely.
We'll take a few more audience questions. Thanks, Lisa.
Great. So our next question is from Amrita. Amrita, would you like to ask out loud?
Thank you, Lisa. To introduce myself, I'm Amrita Gautam, and a new ambassador for our RiSWP program. And I'm glad to see all our fellow ambassadors and all the team, leadership team in Rising Smart Water Professional and also in Sean. So my question to you would be, I have been listening, and I'm like, this has been an enriching session to hear about your experiences, and also how do you see the interdisciplinary approach to thrive in smart water career, and being a civil engineer and trying to include more of the aspect, more of citizen science aspect. I do struggle a lot. Like, people try to ask me, are you actually doing very technical civil engineering work, or you're just trying to get inside a very social aspect of work? So, but I always tell people that being a technical person, we also need to understand what the demand is in the ground, in the grassroots level. And that's when we can actually feed into the technical aspect and again, get back to the ground. And also it holds a kind of perspective. How do we make a framework from institutional aspect? Because unless it doesn't happen, that we cannot make it a sustainable approach. That's also part of my ongoing research right now. So I think a lot about it. So I was wondering, how do you see this kind of connection, demand, like the research findings in academia, and then the demand from grassroots level, and then how industry should explore to make in smart water, to make us balanced and smart cities.
Thank you, Amrita. So yes, it's about a balance. That's definitely important, because when we think about, so there's a lot of great research that is happening, right? Clearly, a lot of the smart technology that exists today, the basis of it has been research, right? So there's definitely that aspect. Now, when it comes to specific companies who are engaged in this space, there's a challenge, because if you spend a whole lot of time on research and really not be able to create a solution that can readily be market ready, then that's hard, because you're still in the business. You're still in the business and you need to create revenue, otherwise it's very difficult. So that balance is super important. Sometimes people actually joke about this and say, hey, let's not make a research project out of this, right? So, because that would take forever. There are definitely certain parts of each organization that focuses on research and development, right? R&D, and that's what they do, right? But they kind of pick and choose the areas that the company wants to really go deep in. And that is not necessarily all the verticals, right? So it could be something different, or it could be a horizontal type of a play that is being researched. So it really varies from organization to organization. And, you know, it really depends on what their goals are and what their mission is. You know, again, if it's a for-profit organization, they have a shorter, you know, focus on and a shorter timeline that they're willing to spend on research, because they want to quickly get to monetizing and generating revenue, which is understandable because that's their model. You know, versus some organizations that are more research oriented or nonprofit, and they can, you know, definitely have more leeway and digging deeper and really, you know, being very thorough with research and all that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I like the way you've really summarized in a way that we actually see from the industry world, and also like how do other researchers tell me like time and often when I'm wondering like how how does that work actually in the way. But yeah, I would like to talk to you more in personal way, maybe in LinkedIn. So I will talk to you later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Please
Thank
reach
you.
out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Lisa, I think we have a few more questions in the chat if you want to.
Sure. Yeah, I was just waiting to see if Rudy wanted to go next. But yeah, we have two similar questions in the chat, actually. One is from Mthohokisi, sorry if I'm pronouncing that a bit wrong, and Utashi, and it's about smart water solutions in Africa. So Mthohokisi, would you like to ask your question out loud and unmute?
Hi, Lisa. How are you? Hi. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. Hi. It's Mthohokisi, but it's okay.
Okay.
You almost got it right.
Almost, yes.
So yeah, almost. So my question was really on if Sielen has worked on technologies that can be immediately applied to an African context. I mean, if we look at the African context, currently there's no smart data capture or machinery that is smart in the water sector. So does she have any grassroots like technologies that she would recommend we start from? Thanks.
Thank you for that question. And, you know, one of the areas that I had been very interested to see if we can have solutions rolled out to has been Africa, especially, you know, when we think about how important it is, how, you know, water is one of those critical aspects in Africa, and there's this need to make every drop count. So one of the things that we started to explore is to connect with a company called ACVO. So ACVO is a nonprofit organization. They focus in smart water technologies, and they're very active in Africa and some in South America. And so we were talking about how to collaborate potentially, but unfortunately, we couldn't find a lot of traction because we're not quite as ready to be in Africa, you know, from that perspective, you know, from an operations technology perspective. So we're mostly kind of on the IT side at this time in Africa. And but if you look up ACVO, they are a wonderful company, smaller, but very much engaged in this space. So they might have some really great ideas and be able to connect you with some other folks who are engaged in your region.
Thanks so much, Sielen, for that. And yeah, so Rudy's having a bit of trouble with her connection at the moment. So I'll just ask you the next question that we have in our set of mentorship questions. So the next question is, what is your next big career goal, or where are you hoping to take your career next? What advice would you give your mentee if they had this goal?
Yes. So one of the things that I've been working on most recently is to expand my board experience to corporate companies and corporate boards. So my experience has been in nonprofit boards, and obviously SWAN is my favorite board that I work with. And I see Shirley. And so that's one of my next goals, to be engaged from a corporate perspective, serving on a board. So I'm just beginning that journey, and I'm excited to see what's going to come next. So, and as far as giving advice to a potential mentee is, again, think about what the possibilities are, and then think about your areas of strength, and think about how can you build something new based on the strengths that you already have and the experience that you've already gained, even though, you may not have years and years of, let's say, professional experience, but you still have experience from college and from your internships, the first couple of years of work. I mean, those are all important and they matter. So also kind of thinking a little bit outside of the box. I certainly had that lens, and I never felt that I wanted to be, let's say, a roadway designer for the rest of my life. That's where I started, right? So I started designing roadways. And, I have the most respect for folks who do that on a, daily basis. And absolutely, it's wonderful. For me, though, I always felt that I wanted to have a bigger lens, and I wanted to be more on the innovative side. So those are some of the things that helped me guide my path.
Great. Thanks so much. So we're just running out of time. So any of the other questions that are coming in the chat, we'll post them on the LinkedIn group for Sielen to answer for us via LinkedIn on the RiSWP LinkedIn group after the session. And then I'll ask you our final question, and then we'll close out this session. So the last question we have is, and a really interesting one, so I'm excited to hear what you'll say, is what is your favorite question to ask in an interview, and how would you answer it?
So one question that comes to mind is, what else are you engaged in at Cisco, my work, outside of your daily job, right? So one of the exciting things that I'm engaged with is a program called Global Problem Solvers Challenge. This is a program that Cisco, that comes out of the CSR team at Cisco, the corporate social responsibility. And it's basically $1 million of prize money that will go to folks who compete for this program, through this program. And the idea is to help accelerate adoption of breakthrough technology, products and services that drive economic development and solve social or environmental challenges. So it's very, very special. We get amazing group of folks applying to this program from all over the world. A lot of them are in Africa or India, where these solutions are so desperately needed. And I serve as a judge for that program. So it's really exciting. In fact, I just finished the judging for this new batch of folks who are applying this year. And I came across some amazing applications, and it's just so inspiring. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I co-lead our inclusion and collaboration initiative. Again, that's our diversity initiative within Cisco for our overall sales and marketing organization. That's the organization that my organization feeds into. So that's about 40,000 people. So we have a very exciting program that really focuses on developing a concept called proximity, which means that folks need to be proximate to top leaders in the company to exchange ideas and for the leaders to meet with somebody who's different than them, and to really have an open and vulnerable discussion about their experience at Cisco and kind of where they would like to go. So, and that hopefully will lead into sponsorship and, you know, bringing diverse talent up the ranks and into the leadership ranks. So that's the other thing that I'm doing. Also, I'm collaborating with the corporate social responsibility team, CSR, at Cisco on sustainability. Clearly, all large companies, especially tech companies, have made commitments to reduce their carbon footprint, to really move aggressively towards sustainability. And water is absolutely a key part of that. So I work with that team closely. Yeah, so there you go.
Great, thank you. Well, that was our last question. So I think now we'll end the session. And so if we could pull up the last few slides, Sapir, that would be great, because we have some next events that we want to come up. But thank you so much, Sielen, for your fantastic interview. It was really great to hear from you. And I think you provided some fantastic advice. And I can see that people in the chat are really, really happy with everything that you provided us with all these tips and tricks today. So thank you so, so much for that.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and for also being vulnerable and sharing your story with us, because I think for a lot of people, it's not easy to say like, oh, I was scared, or oh, I really didn't want to do this and I wanted to do that more. And I think vulnerability in the workspace is something that we need a lot more of as well. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Great. So thanks again, Sielen. So we have her on screen right now. And the next mentor, I think on the next slide.
We have actually the recordings from previous sessions are available on the RiSWP website. So you can access all the previous recordings, and the session from Sielen will also be shared today. You can also share your questions in the RiSWP LinkedIn group, and we'll try to get responses to those as soon as possible. Another upcoming event that we have in a couple of weeks on April 6th is How to Land a Job in Smart Water, Tips and Trends for Smart Water Careers. We'll have Josh from Josh's Water Jobs and Nikhil from JobStep, two founders of websites with resources for young professionals. So we're really looking forward to that event, led by Jessica, who's on the RiSWP leadership team. And lastly, our next mentor will be Ricardo Taormina. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This will be April 21st. So we'll send out the link to register for that as well. And all of this information is located on the RiSWP website. Thank you everyone for attending today's session. Thank you, Sielen, for your very thoughtful responses and participating in this initiative. And we're looking forward to seeing everyone at the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.